everyone, and welcome to Faithful Foundations podcast episode 5, where today we are talking about keeping your vows in every season.
Yeah, this is so important that we understand that your vows are not just something that you say on your wedding day, but it's a commitment that you're making, not to man and not to just your spouse, but you're making it under the eyes of the Lord. And it's a covenant-keeping vow that you're doing, that you're saying, I'm going to be faithful to you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to love you in every season and every time. And no matter the situation, no matter what's going on, even in our disagreements, or even when you're waiting for your spouse to chime in and not say anything, you're waiting for them. You're going to be faithful no matter what when it comes to that, because here's the thing. God is faithful. He's faithful from generation to generation. He's unchanging. He changes not. And therefore, part of who he is his faithfulness. And part of that is his vow to us. And then he wants, in return, us to be committed to our vows, our faithfulness to him. In Deuteronomy, it tells us this, a scripture in chapter 7.
It says that, "Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is faithful in keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations."
Yeah, and so when you are in covenant with your spouse and in keeping your vows, what you're doing, you're reflecting God's character in that. You're reflecting who he is by remaining faithful in the vows, no matter what season, again, it is. You could be a tough season that you're going through. One of the things that was always said to us, which I don't really understand, I guess, looking back on it now, but what people told us before we got married is that your first year of marriage is always your toughest. And I didn't think it was very tough. I think that there have been other seasons in our life later on in marriage that, and when we throw kids in it and different things like that.
With each kid that we've added.
Yeah, you get a new season. And one of the most important things is understanding that, with each kid or each situation or circumstance that arises that, comes out of left field, whatever it may be, that we're first committed to each other. Our commitments first and foremost is to God, and then to each other, and having God in the center of that.
Yeah, and I really think it's so important to, not losing sight of going back to the basics, not making it difficult, not making it so hard. Going back to the vows that you took before Christ on your wedding day are still so permanent and mean so much 15 years later, 4 kids later, ups and downs later. Stick to the basics of those times.
Yeah, and one of the things that we tell people when we marry them, and I don't like just doing the traditional vows and for better or for worse, we'll read those if they want, but I think it's so important when you make a vow and write out of your heart, because you're really making a vow and a commitment to that person, to your spouse on that day, that in front of God, in front of him, a covenant God, that this is my covenant, this is what I'm choosing to do. Because one of the things you have to understand is that you're choosing to marry this person for better or for worse. In other words, in every season, ups and downs, no matter what we go through, I'm making commitment not only to them, but before God, that I'm choosing you, and I'm choosing to be faithful and to keep God at the forefront. And if God is a faithful God, and he's a God that it looks down on commitment and vows, and that's so important to him, then that needs to be very important to us in our marriage and in your relationships.
Yeah, and truly, I think as before you are married, your relationship that you have already developed with Christ yourself, you're just bringing your spouse, another person, in on that. And so keeping Christ at the center of your marriage, that is your vow. Mm-hmm. That's one of the most important vow. Going to the Lord when you have ups and downs, going to the Lord when there are problems. It's not always going to be your first thing to talk to your spouse about it, right? Like, you take those to the Lord. Yep.
And, vows to the Lord are very important. They carry weight. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that like your vows that you made on your wedding day carry weight. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that's lightly that you want to break.
Not just a tradition that you do it.
And essentially, in your vows and what you're making a commitment is you're not signing a contract. This is not a contract, even though you have to sign a piece of paper.
How long ago would you have thrown out your contracts?
I wouldn't have thrown mine out. Makes me quite question you. No. But the fact is, you're not signing a contract in the sense before man, even though you sign your marriage license and everything, you're making a commitment before God that I am going to love this person. I'm going to treat them as you treat the church, as for a man and treating a bride, and the woman is going to respect and honor her husband. These are vows you're making through the thick and thin, through ups and downs, through the children, and through vacations, through hard times, easy times.
Building houses. Houses, not one.
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, for us was like our most challenging time, is because in building the house, we lived with my parents for that time, and then we just had Branson.
Yeah.
And it was probably the hardest year of our marriage, and it wasn't that we were at odds or not close, but it was different because you are adding a different factor into it, and we had to be intentional in that time and work on that.
We were all together in a basement.
Yes. And with a newborn.
In a room.
And then, respecting my parents and their privacy and respecting their rules and different things. And, it was a challenging time, but through it all, it made us stronger.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you have to understand, is that through hard seasons, keeping to your vows are going to make you stronger.
Yeah. What about in like a season of busyness?
Yeah.
And really setting that time to have with one another, when you add kids in, when you add living with parents, when you add being then the lead pastors of a church, where your time is pulled so many different ways.
Yeah, and part of your commitment, your vow, is to make that time with your spouse. And I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but you never stop dating your spouse. And so you have to make the commitment to say, even in the busy season, even, for us, like, the ministry is so important, but first and foremost, our family comes first. Yeah. It's our relationships with the Lord personally, then in our marriage, and then our relationship together, and then our family, our kids. And that comes before the ministry, before the church, because what would it be worth for us to be in the ministry and doing these things, but seeing our children lost, seeing our children not have a relationship with the Lord? Our most important, our greatest ministry is between the walls of our home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts with a commitment between us and our vows, and staying true to those vows.
Yeah, and when it goes back to spending time and thinking of dating your spouse, but not only your spouse, but your kids too. I mean, I think that it's so good we try to set time aside with just Brinlyn, our oldest, of doing something with her, with just Bristol, with just Brielle. Branson just got his first time of golfing, of taking him out and doing one-on-one time with them too, because they are just as much a part of it and in the ministry as we are too. And so I think it's so good not just to date your spouse also, but to remember to take your kids one-on-one and invest that in them. And
I think you said something too there in the ministry, and growing up personally as a pastor's kid is, in being called, and you step into that calling as we did. Our kids didn't get to choose to step into this lifestyle, into a commitment to be in the ministry, and they're kind of born into that and brought into a commitment that we've made. And so that's why it's so important as parents, and regardless, of what you do at your home and what you do in your career and at your home, is the fact that understanding your kids didn't get to choose that. So making sure that they understand and they're important, but also showing them the commitment that you have to your spouse, the love that you have to your spouse, because love isn't just a comfort. Love is work. And not only that, you don't just wake up one morning and say, well, I fell out of love with them. No, love every morning that you wake up is a choice. You're choosing to love your spouse. You're choosing to keep your vows. You're choosing to be committed to your spouse. You're choosing how you treat them and what kind of day you want to have. And making that choice every single day, not only one means something to your spouse and that commitment and the vows and before the Lord, and that's the most important, but then you're also showing your kids, like, hey, mom and dad maybe had a disagreement the night before, not a fight, just a disagreement, but they're waking up and they're choosing to love each other. They're choosing to love us. They're not, there may be a disagreement with your kid and you had to discipline them or something. They're waking up and they're choosing to love me. They're choosing to show me how they love me despite the fact. And I think that's so important in nowadays in just relationships, because it's a standard in this world. Like if something doesn't work or you're not getting along, well, the answer is divorce. Well, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is commitment.
Yeah, and I think truly just showing by an example of serving one another. Even if they hear you have a little bit of a disagreement, still then, moments later choosing to serve one another and raising them up with the servant's heart of that, how much it does mean and how much it is to serve someone else, and just bringing them in on that also, and finding the joy in it and how we go about it.
Yeah, and so if you look at 1 Corinthians 13:7, it says, love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And I think that's a big one, in keeping your vows and commitment to each other. You have to persevere. You have to fight through the hard times, and you have to understand that there's patience involved, there's trust involved, there's faith involved, and you're going to persevere through these seasons that maybe aren't the seasons you want to be in at a certain time, but your vows are what keep you tied together. Your commitment is what keeps you tied together, and that love strong. And so if you look at some of the different seasons that we kind of went through and saw here, is that, in your honeymoon or easy times, you can easily become what? Complacent.
Yeah.
Because it's easy, and when it's easy and you're in that honeymoon stage, you can become complacent in it. So how do you keep from becoming complacent or staying in that place of being complacent?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the staying intentional and doing things outside of maybe the regular that you do in your every day-to-day. So just staying in with your intentional, and then remaining in a gratitude state of mind, state of heart in your walk of just thankfulness.
Yeah, and I think that, like, we're in a season now, like, even though it's not the honeymoon season, I mean, we passed that a long time ago, 15 years now, but, you kind of see those seasons come back, too, and things, but one of the things that we've learned is being intentional is very important in every season. Being intentional to set time aside, being intentional with our kids, being intentional in our marriage, being intentional when it's time for ministry, being intentional in that area. And I think when you set your mindset on that and have the intentions that, hey, in this season right now, it's a busy season, but yet we're going to be intentional, you will see that you make time for each other, and that your vows and your commitment in that area are strong, and they're holding you together.
Yeah, and just with, like, when you're doing your intentional and, like, dating, not to think of it so extreme. Like, yes, it's fun to get dressed up and go somewhere, great. But also just going for a walk together, or just going on a boat ride, or just sitting outside together. It's still time together. We still consider that a date of us just being together. Yeah,
and so some other seasons that you may go through are like a dry and confusing season. And the challenge in that is doubt and discouragement that will come. And you can, when it's a dry season, or maybe things just you don't seem to be connected, or the communication seems to be lacking in a way, and you're kind of butting heads even, you can have that doubt or discouragement that comes in, and then the enemy likes to play in that area and begin to feed thoughts into your mind about doubting whether the relationship or your marriage, or the discouragement in your marriage, and things with that. And things can begin to rise if you're not specific about overcoming those things. So what are some of the ways that we can really make sure that we overcome the doubt, the discouragement?
Well, first of all, one of the things I think that is so important is when you feel the disconnect or feel distant, that you get back closer than ever, is the first way to not be disconnected anymore. You have to just conquer that right away and not let there be any distance. But when you're anchored in the Word and anchored in God's truths, and you have those things down in you, it's really just pulling those out during that time too, and just trusting God's timing. It can be just for a short season or a short time, but doing what you need to do individually to then make things right back together.
Yeah, and I think in that too is you're choosing to trust each other. You're choosing to trust in the vows that you made and the commitment that you made in that season, and you're choosing to trust the one that you've made a commitment to. And that, it's a season that you're in, and trusting that season will, come to an end.
There's a new season coming.
Well, there's a season and
Yeah.
a time and
For everything.
and a season will start and a season will end.
Yeah.
And so if you look at this, then you can have a season of conflict or loss, which the challenge in that is emotional tension that can come up and, between each other. We haven't, fortunately enough, really experienced a loss that is close to us as far as a father or a mother as of yet. And with that, it can cause some tension and stuff. So what are some of the areas that we can use to overcome those?
I would say definitely like emotions are fleeting. And so just remembering that the emotions will come, that the feelings will come, but they're fleeting and they aren't always a great interpretation of what is actually going on or what is actually in the moment. And so just getting past those first emotions that were to come, and again, sticking together through that.
Yeah, and a lot of it, be able to do that is grace.
Yeah.
Showing grace to one another.
We might not have experienced a great loss ourselves, but we have walked other people through loss. And in grieving, I would say one of the most important and biggest things is to remember and to realize that not everyone grieves the same. And so just because someone close to you isn't grieving how you are grieving doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, or that they're not grieving, or that they're not, going through the same thing, that it shouldn't look the same.
Yeah, and it's just showing grace to one another, and trusting God's grace, but, and with that, it's having faith in your marriage, but showing grace. So, one of the things is our grip on God is our faith, and his grip on us is grace. Well, in a marriage, it's the same. Is our grip on the marriage is our faith, but it's also a grip on each other is our grace that we show towards one another, and how we can walk in grace in each season with that. And then you have the waiting season, and in that can bring frustration because you're waiting on something to come about, maybe in our marriage or whatever, something we're believing for together, or just, for us to communicate on the same level or whatever. We've been in some of those seasons.
You've shown me so much grace.
But, in those waiting seasons, and a way that we overcome that is through our obedience, obeying the word of the Lord. But not only that, staying committed to what we made our commitment to and obeying the word of the Lord towards that. And then you look at seasons of abundance. And really with that, the challenge that you have is distraction. When you have things that are coming easy, you're in a season of like, it just seems like overflowing with goodness. You can easily get distracted and allow things to distract you. First of all, from the Lord, but distract you from each other and being intentional with each other. So what's one of the best ways that we can overcome the distractions in our marriage?
A distraction in our marriage? Well, with the abundance, what came to me was the best thing of when you're in abundance is blessing others. That's like amazing. Always don't keep it to yourself. But being distracted.
Well, I think you said it is like keep from being distracted when you have that is being intentional, but also it's what can I do for the other?
Yeah. If you have abundance, I mean, really with the right heart, the only ever reason that you would long or want abundance, I mean, for us, I know, is so that we could be a bigger blessing to other people. And so seeking the Lord and praying about who we could help or who we could bless or what we could do for someone else with
and
that.
How we can influence other people's lives. So, and I think, just understanding that when you make a commitment, you're not making a commitment just to your spouse on that day. You're making a commitment before the Lord, and you're making a commitment to him to love your spouse, to respect your spouse, to treat your spouse as you would want to be treated, and understand that love is not something that's fleeting. It's something you choose to do every single day. And when you choose to love, you're going to see that the foundations are there and that the vows and the commitment are there because I'm choosing to stay committed to my spouse.
Yeah, amen.
All right, you have some things for us, right?
Yes, today's challenges. So choose a way to show and honor respect to your spouse that is above your normal routine. It may be holding the door open for her, which is your normal routine. I'm so thankful you still do that. It might be putting his clothes away. We'll
we
go
go
on
there?
past that now. It may be the way you listen and speak in your communications, but show your mate that he or she is highly esteemed in your eyes. And our couple's talking point is, what is something that you would like me to notice more about you? And our family and kids talking point is, what is your favorite part about being your age?
Yeah. So take those challenges. You sit down with your kids, sit down with your spouse, and talk about these. And then we will see you on the next episode.
See you soon.